Hi, and welcome to today's webcast, Consumers and Brand Loyalty. My name is Jamie Cook, and I'm the managing editor here at Hardware Retailing Magazine and the North American Retail Hardware Association. This webcast, as with any of our webcasts, is sponsored by Hardware Retailing Magazine, the North American Retail Hardware Association, and the Vendor Partner Program. So today, what are we going to discuss? Well, around the office, the concept of whether brand played as important of a role in today's society as it used to really kind of started to surface around our editors. And we wanted to know whether things like the internet, the recession, consumers being bombarded by advertising everywhere from social media to billboards to TV to print ads, whether that was almost making them immune to being affected or emotionally driven by their product brand. So we decided we were going to go straight to the source, the consumers, and see what they said. And I have to say, the information that we got was pretty surprising. So what am I going to share with you today in today's presentation? Well, the survey went over a lot of branding questions ranging from product brands to store brands. This webcast is specifically going to discuss product brands and the role that product brands play in consumers' lives today, as well as some of the influencers on the product brand loyalty. So I'm going to share with you a lot of the overall consumer findings that we found in this brand study, as well as break them out by two of the most evident groups or marketing baskets, as we call them, generations and genders. So to tell you a little bit about the study that we ran, back in March 2013, obviously, we sent out a consumer study across the country, so different demographics, different age levels, different regions, and we asked a series of questions about brand preferences and influences that attract consumers to these brand name products versus their generic alternatives. The one thing with these kinds of studies, and NRHA and Hardware Retailing Magazine are known for doing these kinds of research studies and helping retailers like you field this kind of research, is that consumers answer these types of surveys typically in a light that they want to be viewed in. Not necessarily the way that they would actually act, and this can actually skew some of the data. So in a way, what I'm about to present to you isn't necessarily a direct prediction of what may happen in the retail sector, but rather it should give you kind of a taste or maybe a feeling of what might be some hot button topics for consumers. Another issue, particularly in this survey, was the definition of brand. Today, the definition of brand is so clouded because consumers don't necessarily differentiate maybe a private label brand with a mainstream brand, and so they're having a hard time necessarily differentiating what we define as a national brand. So that might also play into the survey. Overall, our theory that maybe brand wasn't as emotionally driven, wasn't driving purchasing decisions today, was completely false. We found that specifically in the home improvement industry, product brand loyalty remains strong. And in fact, we predict that this strength is going to continue well into the future because younger consumers from our survey appeared particularly loyal, more so than maybe some of the older generations. Another thing that we noticed, as I had mentioned previously, is that loyalty varies by generation and gender. And those were the two brackets that, as I analyzed the research, I was able to find some key trends in. Now, this didn't particularly surprise me. As a market research analyst, I can tell generation and gender are typically two baskets that marketers use, simply because generations, well, those particular consumers are experiencing the same types of events and in the same times, in the same kind of environment. So typically they have similar shopping experiences or influencers. Same with gender. Different things affect males and females and the way that they purchase, and we typically are able to find some key trends between those two consumer buckets. So before we go into those generational and gender buckets, let's go over a couple of overriding trends that we saw across the board, because I just found them incredibly compelling, and they probably will have some ability to help you in the retail environment. This first statistic that we pulled out of the research, I can't say I was necessarily surprised by, but I was excited to have some empirical data to support it. Basically, we asked consumers to define themselves in their DIY experience level. So you see here we have basics, weekend warrior, all the way up to semi-pro. And we asked them, how many of those purchases have you been purchasing for those projects? Are you more brand loyal to today than you were 5 years ago? As you can see, the basics, only 6% of them answered that they are purchasing more brand name products. But as you move up to a weekend warrior, who here we define as being comfortable painting an entire room or fixing a leaky faucet, so kind of that intermediate kind of home improvement project, that nearly doubles to 12% who are purchasing more brand name products than they were 5 years ago. And as you move up to a serious DIYer and a semi-pro, those only increase as we go. I do like to provide a little caveat that the pro sector we do not include that in here, as I define the pro as obviously a professional and not using the product in a consumer sense. So the next really overriding trend that we saw was what had the largest influence on brand name product purchases. And quality came in as the #1 influencer, and that's interesting to see. We asked some other interesting questions, whether lifestyle, that being defined as the product offers me perceived lifestyles that I'm looking for, it's long lasting, the product will obviously last me a long time, or the ROI. And across all product categories, so even branching out of the home improvement sector, quality continues to really drive brand name product purchases. This made sense to me in a sense of food, because a lot of times consumers who are actually ingesting a product tend to be very, very concerned with the quality. But as you can see, the home improvement products ranked up there very high with quality as well. So that's something that you're going to want to focus on promoting. As independent retailers, I know that you stock quality products, and I know that's what differentiates you from a lot of other competitors. However, I would challenge you to ask yourself whether you're promoting that fact, because clearly that has a huge influence on whether consumers purchase a brand name product or a generic product. So if you're trying to promote your brand name products, quality is going to be a key in that endeavor. So now let's go into breaking out product branding trends by generations. There were a lot of very interesting statistics that came out of these questions. One of the most promising and exciting statistics for me was that younger generations are buying more brand name products. Now, just to give you a little background into how we go about these kinds of surveys, we typically come up with a theory or a thesis, which is driven by either anecdotal evidence in the industry or something that we gathered through an interview, or something the industry is talking about that maybe we don't necessarily believe from our expert findings might be accurate. Well, this came from the theory that we felt younger generations maybe were turned off for brand name products simply because they rode out the recession, and they're bombarded by the internet. But this statistic actually suggests that younger generations are buying more products that are brand named. As you can see here, the largest group of consumers, or bucket of consumers, is the age 25 to 34 age group, which is an awesome statistic for independent home improvement retailers, because typically consumers between the ages of 25 and 34 are either getting married, buying their first homes, starting to kind of venture out on their own and do their own DIY products. So there's a huge consumer opportunity here to promote and sell your brand name products. Another interesting statistic we gathered in this kind of area of the study was that 64% of the overall respondents said that they were purchasing the same number of or more brand name products today than they were 5 years ago. So overall, when you don't break it out by specifically age groups, 64%, so over a majority of consumers, were purchasing the same number or more brand name products than they were today than in the future. So obviously this is a trend that that isn't short-lived, that will continue, in our opinion, and as a result of this study, well into the future. Now, my favorite parts of these kind of webcasts are giving you some actual applicable actions to take away from the research that we do and impart in your store to make sure that you can capitalize on these trends. So, in the case of younger generations being more attracted to brand name products, there's a particular way to capitalize on this trend. You really have to stand behind the products you sell. And I know you're saying, Jamie, that's an obvious suggestion. However, what you really can do in this situation, and as a result of this survey and this information, is that you can become a brand champion. Typically, consumers between, the ages of 25 and 34, where we had the most brand loyal consumers, they are operating off of friend or family references or recommendations. They're new to the home improvement project scene, so they're asking friends and family to help them through this. So, if a consumer comes in, say I came into your store and said, well, my dad suggested that I buy XYZ product, and you don't carry that product, is a perfect opportunity to create that relationship, which is everything when it comes to product branding. So you can become the brand champion by saying, XYZ, that is a great product, but let me tell you why we don't stock that product, but instead carry this line. And we find that this might be easier to do your product because of, or tap into the quality. We find that this is a better quality product. You need to really train employees on implementing this kind of strategy, however, because you don't want to alienate the consumer, or you don't want to make them feel less comfortable in their purchasing decision. So you've got to be it's a very, very careful balance, but it is one way that you can really create that relationship and convert consumers to your product line, so thus creating return visits. Especially in that sweet spot, that 25 to 34 age group, who will obviously be coming back throughout their entire lives. A next generational trend that we noticed were when it came to influencers. What influenced a consumer's decision to pick a product brand over a generic? And this kind of goes to what I was telling you guys about the family and friend recommendations. You can see here in the 25 to 34 and younger age brackets, that is a huge influencer on why they chose the product brands over the generic alternatives. Some other areas that were huge, well, a specific statistic that should be just blaring and bouncing out at you is the experience. So experience with these product brands should be something that you play into and something that you address when it comes to different age groups, specifically in the 55 to 64-year-old market. So in your market, what I would suggest doing with a statistic like this is share this with your employees so that when they see someone come in, they can kind of hone in on what may be particularly important to that consumer or why they might choose a product brand, and then let that employee help suggest experiences that revolve around those influencers. Other ways to capitalize on this trend, obviously quality and experience were huge drivers, but it's all about those emotional connections. So what I suggest people do are share positive information about the brands and the products that relate to why that particular generation might be interested in the product. So say reputation is huge, or say access to the community or impact on the community is huge. I suggest retailers share the positives about the manufacturers of the products. So if they were award-winning, if they had warranty, if they are particularly involved in the community as a company, share that kind of information as a way to help kind of drive home that final decision of product choice. And as always, this isn't particularly brand specific, but I always advocate sharing positive personal experiences. If this means giving your employees a couple of products to try and then having them come back and share those experiences, or whether it means taking some of your products home and trying them yourself, or getting some customer feedbacks, those positive personal experiences play off of the relationship selling strategy, and that, when it comes to product branding and branding sensitivity, is huge and key. So another really interesting statistic that we got out of this survey was the fact that today's consumer is very forgiving. And this whole trend really surprised me and kind of caught me off guard. I felt that everything I've read said that today's consumers want everything. They want it now. They want it at the best price. They're very demanding. Well, when it comes to product brand, they're actually very forgiving. So the percentages you see here that are broken out by different generational baskets are consumers who said that they would maybe, probably, or definitely try a name brand product, home improvement product, again, even if they had a bad experience. So if you look at these younger consumers, 25 to 34, nearly 3/4 of the respondents that fell within this age group said that they would maybe, probably, or definitely try a product again. That's huge. In every age group, as you can see, at least half, if not more, of the consumers were willing to try a product again. Now, you don't want to give a consumer a reason to have to try a product again or have a bad experience, so I always suggest reviewing basic selling techniques and making sure you understand the project the consumer really needs, so the problem with the product isn't your store. And I also suggest reworking and focusing in on your return policies to make sure that there's a seamless transition throughout a return policy if a consumer has a bad experience. However, the research that we have here does suggest that should you have a bad experience with a product, the consumer is willing to try it again, and that's very promising. How else do you capitalize on this forgiveness factor? Well, because it's all about selling a relationship, that suggests that product brand purchasing is more than a one-time thing. So it doesn't really surprise us that the fact that consumers are forgiving now that we've kind of analyzed this data. But what does surprise me is that more retailers, don't play up this factor and play up their value added and community benefits, because that can be a really easy way to emotionally connect with a consumer, and it's something that your competitors aren't necessarily able to do as quickly because they have to go through a corporate headquarters to do so. So one suggestion I give a lot of retailers is to try hosting events that feature your brand names, maybe invite the vendors in to host a special event, or give out free swag. That's what I always say, give out a hat that says a particular brand name, or give out a shirt, and that really kind of reinforces that emotional connection. As I said before, while consumers are forgiving, do not want you to go away thinking that you can give them that bad experience. Don't give them a reason to have a bad experience in the first place. That's your first place to start. But should something unfortunate happen, you can take that statistic to the bank there. So now let's shift gears and talk about product branding trends by gender. Again, typically, females experience product consumption at a similar rate due to the experiences they have, same with men. So what did we find? Well, category brand loyalty definitely varies by gender. Some overall categories were just typically lended themselves to brand loyalty. So a couple of those are paint, power tools, hand tools, and prep products. However, when we kind of researched a little bit deeper down into the nitty-gritty, power tools actually were particularly brand sensitive to females, while hand tools were particularly brand sensitive to males. So, how do you capitalize on that trend? Well, first of all, you got to make sure that you have a product mix in those key categories that feature brand name products prominently. Obviously, you're going to have a mix of assortments. However, in those key areas that particularly show brand sensitivity, make sure the products are out front and center, maybe have some promotions around them, kind of draw the attention to that. Focus on quality in your advertising, but specifically focus on them in these brand sensitive categories. You don't necessarily, one thing we found that was that price wasn't as much of a concern in brand name purchases as we thought it might be, but quality again was the king. So you can feature those or focus on those in your advertising. Women tend to become more emotionally connected through lifestyle signage. So in the areas that they're particularly brand sensitive, that's power tools, paint, pet supplies, try some lifestyle signage. Whereas men who were particularly brand sensitive in those hand tools sections, as well as power tools and paint, you'll want to focus in on more of the informational signage, kind of where do I go to get my product, what aisle, how do I do what I need to do, get me there, get me in and out. Another really interesting statistic that came out of this survey, and one that I think should really kind of set up a red flag for you, is that consumers are exercising their shopping options. Now, we knew that the internet was increasing consumers' ability to product source and shop. However, what we're finding is that the percentage of consumers who said they would turn to another retail source, whether that's online or a different store, to find a specific product was incredibly high in the home improvement sector. So if we wanted to kind of have an ability to compare different segments to make sure that we had something to compare against. And as you can see, home improvement products are only second to electronics in this section. So consumers are definitely willing to source out brand name products if they want them in the home improvement industry. So what does that mean for you? Well, obviously, you're going to need to focus on inventory management. There's really no forgiveness for being out of stock today because consumers can just simply swipe their thumb and order something online. So really focus on how you're managing your inventory. Talk to your distributors about some cutting edge ways to make sure you're in stock. Attend retail shows. Read Hardware Retailing Magazine for some suggestions, but stay up to date on that. Another really interesting way to capitalize on this trend is to think of non-linear ways of promoting your brand name products. So when I say non-linear, obviously I'm a huge proponent of print advertising. I think that it's a very effective way, as well as the analysis that we've read finds it to be a very effective way to reach consumers. But don't just focus on the one way. Give them the opportunity to learn more about your product brands through multiple avenues or vehicles. So utilize the internet, utilize social media, utilize TV or radio ads in addition to your typical circular ads. And then once you've created those new kinds of advertising formats, integrate them back into your store as well. So bring the online efforts in store. So whether that's offering some coupons online and then telling your consumer to come in and take advantage of those coupons, or bringing kiosks into your store where if you happen to be out of stock, which I know you won't be, but if you happen to be, that you can, the consumer can actually use your kiosk and order through you. So you're not losing that sale. Whew, so that was a lot of information, and again, it only scratches the surface of some of the information that we gathered from the survey. So I would suggest you stay in touch with your Hardware Retailing Magazine and www.nrha.org so that you can see some of the other information that we received from this survey. But what I hope that you took away from today's webcast is that brand loyalty is not fading whatsoever. In fact, our survey suggests that brand loyalty in the home improvement sector is actually set to increase as younger consumers are more concerned with product branding. Another thing to take away, brand loyalty increases with DIY experience. So if you're specifically catering to a semi-pro or a weekend warrior, you can see that product brands continue to increase in importance as the DIY experience increases. Quality is king. I know that's easy to say, but it's really something that you can promote, and take advantage of. And then finally, brand loyalty does vary by category when you're talking about different genders. So if you recall, women particularly are brand sensitive in power tools, men are particularly brand sensitive hand tools, and there's a lot of categories that they've crossed over, such as hand tools, painting, pet supplies, things like that. So I hope today's webcast was helpful and informative for you, and if you ever have any questions about this webcast or anything that we publish in Hardware Retailing Magazine or at www.nrha.org, please don't hesitate to give me an email, give me a call. I'd love to talk about retail. I'm a bit of a hardware geek, so give me a call, and if there's anything that we can ever do to help you become a better, more profitable merchant, please give us a call. Thank you for joining.